My mother stood by the security checkpoint and told the guard I was just confused to stop me from entering the arena. But she had no idea that the man holding the microphone on stage was about to expose her husband's darkest secret to thousands of people. The humidity in Ann Arbor was stifling for May. A thick, heavy blanket that made the polyester of my borrowed graduation gown cling uncomfortably to my skin. I stood outside the Chrysler Center, the massive concrete structure looming over me like a judge, while thousands of families streamed past. They carried bouquets of roses, mylar balloons bobbing in the breeze, and faces bright with pride. I carried nothing but a cracked iPhone and a commencement program I had paid $5 for, clutching it so tightly the edges were beginning to dampen with sweat. My name was in there. Had checked 3 times. Natalie Brooks. It was printed in black and white, sandwiched between a Brooks, Evan, no relation thankfully, and a Brown, Jessica. Seeing it in print was supposed to be the moment I finally exhaled. It was supposed to be the proof that the last 4 years of hell were real, that the nights spent scrubbing tables at the diner in Ypsilanti and the early mornings crying over statistics textbooks in the library bathroom had actually amounted to something. But as I stepped toward the metal detectors, the air shifted. A security volunteer, a young guy who couldn't have been much older than me but wore his yellow event jacket with the authority of a general, stepped directly into my path. His eyes flicked down to my shoes, scuffed black heels I'd bought from a thrift store specifically for this day, and then up to the cap that was slightly too large for my braids. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his voice flat. "The graduate entrance is for students only. Guests need to use the upper concourse doors." I blinked, the noise of the crowd fading into a dull roar behind my ears. "I am a student," I said, my voice coming out raspier than I intended. I cleared my throat and held up the program. "I'm graduating today. Sociology." He didn't even look at the program. He looked at me. He looked at the frantic energy radiating off me, the lack of a cheering section, the solitude. "Are you sure? Do you have your student ID?" My hand went to my small clutch, fumbling for the plastic card, when a voice cut through the humid air like a serrated knife. "She's not walking." Froze. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The tone, sharp, dismissive, laced with a potent mix of embarrassment and annoyance, was the soundtrack of my childhood in Toledo. Deborah Brooks, my mother, stepped out of the flow of the crowd. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that cost more than my entire tuition for the semester. Her hair perfectly coiffed, her face set in a mask of tight disapproval. Beside her stood my father, looking at his watch, and my younger brother, Evan. Evan was wearing a tailored suit that fit him like a glove. He looked every inch the golden child they had always claimed he was. He was graduating today too, of course. Business degree. Fully paid for by the bank of mom and dad. "She's just confused," my mother said to the security guard, offering him a conspiratorial, apologetic smile. "She didn't look at me. She never looked at me if she could help it. She's been having a hard time lately. She's not on the list." Confused. That word. It hit me in the chest with the force of a physical blow. It was the weapon they had used against me since I was 7 years old. When I wanted to take art classes instead of piano like Evan. Natalie is confused about her talents. When I said I wanted to go to a state school instead of the prestigious private college Evan was being groomed for. Natalie is confused about her potential. When I left home at 19 because I couldn't breathe in a house where I was treated like a genetic error. She's confused. She'll be back when she runs out of money. "I'm not confused," I said, my voice trembling but louder this time. I looked directly at the guard, ignoring my mother. "My name is Natalie Brooks. I have a 3.8 GPA. I am walking today." My father finally looked up from his watch. His eyes were cold, devoid of any warmth a parent should have for a child. "Natalie, don't make a scene," he hissed, stepping closer. "We already told the extended family you dropped out last fall to spare us the embarrassment of this." He gestured vaguely at my thrifted outfit. "Just go home. We'll send you a check for gas." "I didn't drop out," I said, the injustice burning hot behind my eyes. I made Dean's List every semester while working 2 jobs. I'm graduating with honors. Evan let out a short, derisive laugh. Sure you are, Nat. Just like you were going to be an artist, right? He smirked, that familiar, arrogant twist of his lips that made me want to scream. Dad said he handled the paperwork. You're not walking. Save yourself the walk of shame. Dad said he handled the paperwork. A cold chill went down my spine, instantly cooling the sweat on my neck. 2 months ago, there had been a hold on my account, a lingering fee for a lab breakage I hadn't caused. I had panicked. I didn't have the $100. I had called my father, begging for just that one small thing, the only thing I'd asked for in 4 years. He had sighed, called me irresponsible, but said he would take care of it so I could file for graduation. He said he handled it. I submitted my application, I insisted, though my confidence was fracturing. I got the emails. Come on, Evan, my father said, turning his back on me. We don't want to miss the procession. Let her play pretend if she wants. Security will sort it out inside. My mother smoothed her dress, cast one last pitying glance at the security guard as if to say, can you believe what I have to put up with? And followed them. They walked through the guest entrance, disappearing into the cool darkness of the arena, leaving me standing in the sun. The security guard looked at me, his expression softening just a fraction. Maybe he saw the tears I was fighting back. Maybe he saw the way my hands were shaking. ID? He asked again, but gentler this time. I handed it to him. He scanned it with his handheld device. It beeped green. You're clear, he said, frowning slightly. Go ahead. Good luck. I snatched the ID back and practically ran through the metal detector. I was inside. I had made it inside. But the victory felt hollow, sour in my stomach. Dad said he handled the paperwork. Why did Evan say that? Why did they look so confident? I navigated the crowded hallways of the Chrysler Center, dodging excited graduates taking selfies and parents adjusting tassels. The noise was deafening, a cacophony of joy that felt like it was mocking me. I found the section for the College of Literature, Science, and the Arts. I showed my card to a marshal, an older woman with kind eyes. Brooks, she muttered, flipping through a thick binder of registered graduates who were assigned seating cards. Brooks, Brooks, Brooks. She frowned. She flipped back a page. Then forward. I have an Evan Brooks, she said, tapping the page. Business school, but he's listed here for the cross-disciplinary honors. No, I said, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Natalie Brooks. Sociology. She ran her finger down the list again. Slower this time. Then she looked up at me, and the pity in her eyes was worse than my mother's disdain. Honey, she said softly. You're not on the roll. Did you withdraw? No. The word exploded out of me. I didn't withdraw. I finished my finals last week. I'm sorry, she said, closing the binder. If you're not on the list, I can't give you a seat card. You can't cross the stage without a card. The world tilted. The arena lights blurred into streaks of blinding white. Over the marshal's shoulder, I could see my parents settling into their seats in the VIP section. How did they even get VIP seats? Laughing with another couple. Evan was down on the floor, high-fiving a friend. They knew. They hadn't just predicted I wouldn't make it. They had ensured it. Please, I whispered, my voice breaking. Please check again. There has to be a mistake. I can't let you sit in the graduate section, she said, her voice firming up. You'll have to go to the stands or leave. I stood there paralyzed, while the University of Michigan marching band struck up a triumphant chord that shook the floorboards. I was dressed in a gown, I had the grades, I had done the work, but I was being erased in real time. I looked up at the stage, where the dignitaries were filing in. At the center was the university president, Dr. Samuel Whitaker, a tall white man with silver hair and an intimidating stillness about him. I didn't know him. He didn't know me. But as I stood there being told I didn't exist, I realized I had 2 choices. I could turn around, walk out the back doors and let my family win. I could let them be right about me being the confused failure. Or I could take a seat anyway. I took a deep breath, sidestepped the marshal before she could grab my arm, and plunged into the sea of black robes. Miss, you can't. I ignored her. I ducked into a row of students, spotting an empty folding chair near the back. I sat down, my heart thundering in my ears so loud I could barely hear the anthem. I gripped my program. I was here. I was staying. But as the lights dimmed and the ceremony began, I had no idea that simply sitting in this chair was about to trigger a chain of events that would tear my family apart before the recessional even played. Have you ever felt like the black sheep of your family, watching everyone else get the support you deserved while you had to fight for scraps? If you know what it feels like to be told you don't belong in a room you work twice as hard to get into, I need you to smash that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel if you believe in karma. And tell me in the comments, what is the one moment in your life where you had to stand alone against everyone who doubted you? Let's get the truth out there. The first hour of the ceremony was a blur of speeches about unprecedented times and future leaders, words that usually inspired me but today felt like they were being spoken in a foreign language. I sat on the edge of my folding chair, my knees pressed together to stop them from shaking. Every time a security guard scanned the crowd, I ducked my head, terrified they were looking for the imposter in the third row. I kept glancing up at the VIP section. My parents were easy to spot. My mother was fanning herself with a program, looking bored. My father was on his phone. They looked so comfortable, so assured in their place in the world. They sat there with the confidence of people who had never been erased. Then, the dean of the college approached the podium. Time had come. Will the graduates please rise? The rustle of thousands of synthetic gowns filled the arena. I stood up with them, feeling like a ghost among the living. We filed toward the stage, a slow-moving river of black caps. My heart hammered against my ribs, a painful, frantic rhythm. Maybe it was just a mistake on the marshal's list, I told myself, clutching a shred of desperate hope. Maybe the main reader has my card. Maybe I'm in the system. The reading began. Adams, Michael. Alistair, Sarah. Anderson, Mark. The names boomed over the loudspeakers, each one followed by a cheer from a pocket of the stadium. I watched the faces of the students as they crossed the stage. Relief, joy, exhaustion. They shook hands, took their diploma covers, and smiled for the camera. We inched closer. The alphabet marched on, cruel and efficient. Baker. Banks. Bell. I was 3 people away from the ramp. My brother, Evan, was directly in front of me. He turned back just for a second and saw me standing there. His eyes widened in mock surprise, and then he winked. It was a cold, cruel gesture. Go home, Natalie, his expression said. You don't belong here. He stepped onto the stage. Brooks. Evan. Magna cum laude. The announcer's voice was rich and deep. My parents leaped to their feet in the stands. I could see my mother clapping wildly. My father actually smiling for the first time all day. Evan strode across the stage, shaking the dean's hand, basking in the glory that had been bought and paid for. I stepped up to the ramp. This was it. I didn't have a card to hand the reader, but I stepped forward, ready to whisper my name, ready to beg if I had to. But the reader didn't look at me. He looked past me to the girl behind me. Brown, Jessica. The name hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Froze. The girl behind me, Jessica, gently nudged past me, confused why I wasn't moving. She walked onto the stage. The line kept moving. Bryant, Marcus. Carter, David. I stood at the bottom of the ramp, invisible. The stream of graduates flowed around me like water around a stone. I wasn't on the list. I wasn't in the script. The screen above the stage showed Jessica Brown smiling, then Marcus Bryant. I wasn't there. My chest constricted so tightly I thought I might pass out. I looked up at the stands. My mother had stopped clapping for Evan and was now looking down at the stage area. She saw me standing there, frozen, humiliated. And she looked away. She turned her head and said something to my father, who didn't even bother to look. Tears, hot and stinging, pricked my eyes. It was true. They had done it. They had successfully deleted the last 4 years of my life. I turned around, my face burning with shame, preparing to bolt for the nearest exit. Couldn't stay here. Couldn't watch this. Wait. The voice didn't come from the announcer. Came from the center of the stage. The reading of names stopped abruptly. The organ music faltered. A hush fell over the Chrysler Center, the silence spreading like a wave from the front row to the nosebleed seats. I stopped, one foot already turned toward the exit. Dr. Samuel Whitaker, the university president, had stood up from his heavy oak chair. He walked past the podium, past the confused dean, and walked right to the edge of the stage. He wasn't looking at the script. He wasn't looking at the cameras. He was looking directly at me. "Stop the procession," he commanded. His voice projecting without the microphone, echoing strangely in the sudden quiet. He pointed a finger straight down at where I stood trembling at the foot of the stairs. "Ms. Brooks, don't you dare leave this arena." A pin drop would have sounded like a gunshot in the Chrysler Center. 10,000 people were holding their breath, their eyes darting between the distinguished man in the doctoral robes and me, the girl in the thrift store heels freezing at the bottom of the ramp. "Come up here, Natalie," Dr. Whitaker said. His tone wasn't angry, at least not at me. It was authoritative, the voice of a man who was used to rooms bending to his will. I couldn't move. My feet felt like they were encased in concrete. A security guard, the one who had scanned the names earlier, took a step toward me, but Dr. Whitaker held up a hand. "Let her pass. Now." The guard scrambled back. Shaking so hard my teeth chattered, I took the first step. Then the second. The walk up those stairs felt longer than the 4 years it took to get the degree. When I reached the center of the stage, the lights were blinding. I couldn't see the audience anymore. Just a vast ocean of darkness beyond the stage lights. But I could feel them. I could feel the confusion, the whispers starting to ripple like a rising tide. Dr. Whitaker stepped away from the podium and motioned for me to stand beside him. He looked down at me, and up close, I saw a flicker of profound sadness in his blue eyes. "I apologize, Ms. Brooks," he said, his voice low enough that the microphone didn't catch it, "for what you're about to hear. But it has to be said." He turned back to the microphone. He adjusted his glasses and looked out into the VIP section, directly at the spot where I knew my parents were sitting. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice booming through the arena again. "Universities are institutions of truth. But sometimes, truth is obscured by malice." A murmur went through the crowd. "Earlier this week," Whitaker continued, "the registrar's office received an urgent electronic request to withdraw Natalie Brooks from the graduation roll. The reason cited was academic failure and personal instability." My knees almost buckled. The breath left my lungs. That was why. That was why the marshal didn't have my card. They hadn't just ignored me. They had actively erased my record. "However," Whitaker said, his voice sharpening, "our IT department flagged the request. It was submitted at 2 a.m. on Tuesday. But it was not submitted from a student account, nor from any computer on this campus." I saw movement in the stands. Even from this distance, I could see my father standing up, his silhouette rigid. He was trying to signal someone. He was trying to leave. Dr. Whitaker leaned into the mic, his voice dropping an octave, becoming dangerous. "We traced the IP address of the withdrawal request," he said. "It originated from a private server in Perrysburg, Ohio. Specifically, from the executive offices of Brooks and Associates accounting firm." The gasp from the crowd was audible. It swept through the arena like a physical wind. I stared at the president, my mouth agape. My father's firm. He had logged in from his own office to delete his daughter's future. "Mr. Robert Brooks," Whitaker called out, shielding his eyes against the lights to point directly into the VIP section. "Please sit down. Security has locked the exits to your section." The silence in the arena broke. It didn't break with applause, but with a low, rumbling growl of collective outrage. 10,000 heads turned toward the VIP section where my father, Robert Brooks, stood frozen. His face, usually a mask of composed arrogance, had turned a mottled shade of crimson. He looked like a rat trapped in a corner, darting glances at the security guards moving down the aisle toward him. "This is ridiculous," his voice carried, shrill and desperate, cracking under the pressure of thousands of eyes. "I am a donor. This is a misunderstanding. My daughter is. She's unwell. She did this herself." He was doubling down. Even now, with the digital smoking gun pointed right at his chest, he was trying to paint me as the crazy one. Dr. Whitaker didn't even blink. He gestured to the massive jumbotron hanging above the center court. The screen, which moments ago had shown the smiling faces of graduates, flickered. A document appeared, a blown-up image of the server log. "The timestamp is 2:14 a.m., Whitaker narrated, his voice calm and lethal. The user login was r.brooksandsalman. The IP location is geolocated to the corner office of Brooks & Associates in Perrysburg." The crowd gasped again. It was undeniable. "Furthermore," Whitaker continued, turning his back on my father to face the audience, "the university would like to correct the record regarding Ms. Brooks' academic standing." He put a hand on my shoulder. It was heavy, grounding. Natalie Brooks did not just scrape by. While working full-time night shifts, she maintained a 3.9 GPA. She was the primary researcher on a sociological study regarding corporate ethics that has already been cited by 3 major journals. I looked up at him, stunned. I knew I had done the work, but I didn't know anyone had noticed. I thought I was invisible. "We have a tradition here," Whitaker said, his voice rising, swelling with emotion. "We usually announce the recipient of the Regent's Fellowship for Resilience at the end of the ceremony. It comes with a full grant for a master's degree and a stipend for living expenses." He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "But I think we have seen enough resilience for one day. Natalie Brooks, the university is proud to offer you the fellowship." The arena exploded. It wasn't polite applause. It was a roar. People were standing up. Students, parents, faculty. The sound washed over me, a physical wave of validation that made my knees weak. I covered my mouth with my hands, tears finally spilling over, hot and fast. I looked toward the stands through my blurred vision. Security had reached my row. My mother was sitting with her head in her hands, hiding her face. Evan was staring at the floor, his face pale as a sheet. And my father. 2 burly officers had each of his arms. He wasn't going quietly. He was kicking, shouting, his suit jacket torn at the shoulder. As they dragged him toward the exit tunnel, he stopped fighting for a second. He locked eyes with me across the vast distance of the arena. He didn't look ashamed. He looked terrified. And he looked hateful. He screamed something, but the cheering of the crowd drowned it out. I saw his lips move. "You ruined us." As the doors swung shut behind him, cutting him off from the celebration he had tried to steal from me, I felt a strange vibration in the pocket of my gown. Pulled out my phone. Text message had just come through. It was from an unknown number. "Dr. Whitaker thinks he's a hero, but he just put a target on your back. Run." The applause was still thundering, a deafening wave of sound that vibrated in the floorboards beneath my feet, but I couldn't hear it anymore. All I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears and the phantom buzz of that text message against my palm. "Run." Dr. Whitaker was smiling at me, a benevolent, grandfatherly smile. He extended a hand, holding a diploma cover that felt heavier than lead. "Congratulations, Natalie," he said, his voice warm and amplified for the crowd. "You represent the very best of us." I took the diploma, my fingers numb. I tried to smile for the cameras flashing in the darkness, but my lips felt paralyzed. I wanted to grab his lapels and scream, "Who are you protecting me from?" But the moment was already moving past me. The marshals were guiding me gently but firmly toward the side stairs, the procession resuming behind me. I didn't return to my seat. Couldn't. The air in the arena felt suddenly thin, insufficient. I kept my head down, clutching the leather-bound folder to my chest like a shield, and ducked into the concrete tunnel that led to the loading docks and the exit. I needed to get to my car. I needed to call the police. Real police, not campus security. The tunnel was cool and damp, a stark contrast to the humidity outside. I walked fast, the click of my thrift store heels echoing sharply against the cinder-block walls. I turned the corner toward the exit doors, my hand reaching for the push bar. "Natalie!" The voice stopped me cold. It wasn't the threatening voice of a stranger. It was familiar, shrill, and laced with hysteria. "Turn." My mother was standing near the loading bay, her cream dress rumpled, her mascara streaked down her cheeks in jagged black lines. Beside her was Evan. He looked like he was about to vomit. He had loosened his tie, and his face was a mask of sheer terror. "Are you happy now?" My mother shrieked, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. She took a step toward me, her hands balled into fists. "You selfish, ungrateful little. Do you have any idea what you've done? You didn't just embarrass him. You destroyed him." "He destroyed himself." I shot back, my fear momentarily replaced by a surge of adrenaline. "He tried to erase me, Mom. He committed fraud on a university server. It was for the family," she screamed, closing the distance. "To protect the image. And now it's all over. The firm, the house, everything." "Mom, shut up," Evan said. His voice was quiet, trembling. We both looked at him. He wasn't looking at me with his usual arrogance. He was looking at the exit door behind me, his eyes darting nervously. "You don't get it, Nat," Evan said, stepping between me and our mother. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. Dad wasn't just worried about his reputation. He was worried about the audit. "What audit?" I asked, my grip on the diploma tightening. "The one your research project triggered," Evan whispered, harsh and fast. "Dad told me in the car. That paper you wrote. The anonymous tip about unethical accounting practices. It flagged accounts belonging to the Solano cartel." My stomach dropped through the floor. The Solano cartel. The biggest, most violent distribution network in the Midwest. "Dad was cooking books for them," Evan said, his voice cracking. "He was trying to keep you from graduating so the university wouldn't highlight your name. He thought if you stayed invisible, they wouldn't make the connection between Natalie Brooks, ethics researcher, and Robert Brooks, the accountant." I backed up, hitting the metal crash bar of the door. "But Dr. Whitaker. He said security took Dad." Evan let out a dry, humorless sob. He pointed toward the loading dock bay where a black SUV was just peeling away, tires screeching. "Nat," he said, tears finally spilling over. "Those weren't campus security guards. Dad didn't get arrested. He got taken." The taillights of the black SUV disappeared around the curve of the service road, taking my father, and whatever protection he thought he had, with them. "Taken," I repeated, the word tasting like ash. "You mean kidnapped." "I mean the cartel doesn't file police reports, Natalie," Evan hissed, grabbing my arm. His grip was tight, desperate. "Those guys in the cheap suits. They weren't campus security. They were cleaners. Dad missed a payment or messed up the books, and then you put a spotlight on the whole operation." My mother let out a wail, sliding down the concrete wall until she was a heap of cream silk on the dirty floor. "My house," she moaned, rocking back and forth. "They'll take the house. They'll take the cars. Mom, get up," Evan shouted, his voice cracking. "They're going to take us if we don't move." I looked at my brother. The arrogance was gone, peeled away to reveal a terrified 22-year-old boy. "Why us?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because Dad used our social security numbers for the shell accounts," Evan said, looking me dead in the eye. "Yours too. Why do you think he was so desperate to keep you from graduating? He needed you to stay a dependent on paper so he could keep controlling the account under your name without raising flags. You graduating. You getting that fellowship. It unfreezes your assets. It exposes the money. The world spun. My father hadn't just hated me. He had been using me as a human shield for dirty money. "We have to go," I said, adrenaline finally overriding the shock. "My car is in the C lot. The old Honda." "No." Evan shook his head violently. "They know what we drive. Dad's car is compromised. Mine too." "Mine isn't registered to Dad," I said. "I bought it cash. It's in my name." Evan hesitated, then grabbed Mom's arm, hauling her to her feet. She was dead weight, sobbing incoherently about her reputation. Okay, lead the way." We burst out of the tunnel and into the blinding afternoon sun. The parking lot was a sea of chaos. Families hugging, taking pictures, loading grandmothers into minivans. It was surreal. 50 feet away, people were celebrating the best day of their lives, while we were running for hours. I hiked up my gown, my heels clicking frantically on the asphalt. "This way," I commanded, weaving through the cars. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Then it started ringing. It was the unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something, maybe the sheer terror of the situation, made me slide my thumb across the screen. "Hello," I panted, checking over my shoulder. "Do not go to the Honda," a male voice said. It was deep, distorted, digital. I skidded to a halt. Evan bumped into me, nearly knocking Mom over. "Who is this?" I demanded. "The Honda Civic. Blue. 2014, the voice recited coldly. "Row C, spot 45. I looked up. My car was 50 yards away. "How do you know that?" "Because," the voice said, "I'm currently looking through a scope at the man crouching by your rear tire. If you unlock that car, you and your family will be missed over the pavement." I froze, squinting against the glare. There, just barely visible between the bumper of a minivan and my rear tire, was the shadow of a man in a dark hoodie. He was attaching something to the undercarriage. "Turn around," the voice on the phone commanded. "Walk toward the gray sedan in the delivery lane. Get in or die." "Why should I trust you?" I whispered, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Because," the voice replied, "I'm the one who sent the withdrawal request to the university server. I tried to stop you from coming today to save your life. You didn't listen then. You better listen now." "Don't touch the car," I whispered, the blood draining from my face. "What?" Evan asked, reaching for his pocket where I knew he kept his keys. "Natalie, we need to go." "Evan, stop." I grabbed his wrist, digging my nails in hard enough to leave marks. I tilted my head toward the gray sedan idling in the delivery lane about 30 feet away. "We have to get in that car. Now." "Who's in that car?" he demanded, looking at the nondescript vehicle. "I don't know," I said, my voice shaking. "But the guy on the phone said if we go to my Honda, we die." Evan looked at me, searching for a lie. He didn't find one. He looked back at my Honda, squinting. Then he saw it. The shadow of the man in the hoodie standing up from a crouch behind my rear bumper. The man wasn't holding a tire iron. He was holding a remote. "Move," Evan said, his voice dropping to a terrified rasp. He grabbed Mom's other arm. "Walk. Don't run. Just walk." We steered our mother, who was now catatonic with shock, toward the gray sedan. Every step felt like walking through molasses. I expected the air to ignite behind me at any second. I expected shrapnel to tear through my gown. We reached the gray sedan. The back door swung open before we even touched the handle. "Get in. Heads down." The driver barked. We piled in. Evan shoved Mom into the middle and scrambled in after her. I dove into the passenger seat. The car squealed away from the curb before I even had the door closed. The G-force pinned me against the seat as we swerved around a shuttle bus and shot toward the stadium exit, running a red light. I gasped for air, turning to look at the driver. I expected a federal agent, or maybe some high-tech mercenary. Instead, I was staring at a man in a tweed jacket with elbow patches and thick, smudge-rimmed glasses. "Professor Vance." Choked out. My faculty advisor for the sociology department kept his eyes on the road, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I told you to be careful with that data, Natalie," he said, his voice tight. "I didn't think you'd trigger a cartel war during commencement." "You?" I stared at him. "You're the one who called. You sent the withdrawal request." "I hacked your father's server proxy to send it," Vance admitted, checking the rearview mirror frantically. "I saw the flagged accounts in your rough draft 3 weeks ago. I knew what you had found. I tried to get you pulled from graduation quietly so you'd go into hiding. I thought if you just disappeared from the list, you'd be safe." "Safe!" shouted. "Dr. Whitaker announced it to the whole world." "Whitaker is a good man, but he's an idealist," Vance spat, swerving onto the highway ramp. "He thought he was saving a student from a controlling father. He didn't know he was exposing the Solano family's accountant." He lit a match in a room full of gasoline. "Where are we going?" Evan asked from the back seat, his voice trembling. "The police station." Vance laughed, a harsh, dry sound. "The Ann Arbor police chief just bought a vacation home in Cabo with cash. If we go there, you'll be dead in an hour." He merged into the fast lane, the speedometer climbing past 90. "Then where?" asked. Vance didn't answer immediately. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a burner phone. He tossed it into my lap. "We aren't going anywhere just yet," Vance said grimly. "Because we have to make a trade." "A trade?" I looked at the phone. It was already on a call, muted. "Unmute it," Vance ordered. "Press the button." "Natalie." The voice on the other end was distorted, gurgling, like someone speaking through a mouthful of blood. "Dad," I whispered. "Listen to me," my father rasped, the sound of wind rushing in the background. "They have me. They don't care about the money anymore. They want the hard drive. The one I hid in your dorm room boxes." "I don't have any hard drive," I screamed. "You do," he wheezed. "And if you don't bring it to the Ambassador Bridge in 2 hours, they're going to mail me to you in pieces." "The Ambassador Bridge," Vance repeated, swerving around a semi-truck. "That's the border. If they take him across to Canada, we'll never see him again." "Where are the boxes, Natalie?" "My apartment in Ypsilanti," I shouted over the roar of the engine. "I moved everything out of storage yesterday, but I didn't load the car yet because I didn't want my parents to see how little I had." It was a small mercy born of shame. If I had loaded the Honda like I planned, the hard drive would currently be rigged with C4 in the stadium parking lot. "We have 40 minutes to get to Ipsy, grab the drive and make it to Detroit," Vance calculated, his eyes darting to the dashboard clock. "Hold on." The drive to my efficiency apartment was a blur of terrified silence. My mother sat in the back, staring at her manicured hands as if they belonged to a stranger. Evan was weeping silently, the reality of his golden life crumbling into dust. When Vance screeched to a halt in front of my peeling brick building, he threw the car into park. "Go. 2 minutes. If you're not back, I leave you." I scrambled out, kicking off my heels and running barefoot across the cracked pavement. I burst into my tiny apartment, the smell of stale coffee and stress greeting me. Boxes were stacked everywhere. Dorm boxes. Dorm boxes. I muttered, tearing through the stacks. My father hadn't visited me once. He had only sent me one box, a package 6 months ago labeled Natalie's junk. It was the stuff he'd cleared out of my room to make space for his home gym. I found it buried under a pile of textbooks. I ripped the tape off. Old sketchbooks, a participation trophy, a stuffed bear, and a heavy, outdated graphing calculator case. He had insisted I keep it. "You never know when you'll need backup," he'd said on the phone. Had seemed like such a weird, specific thing to say about a TI-83. I popped the battery cover. There were no batteries. Instead, taped into the hollowed-out compartment, was a sleek, silver flash drive. I grabbed it, my hand shaking, and sprinted back to the car. "Got it!" I yelled, diving into the passenger seat. Vance floored it before my door was even shut. We tore onto I-94 East, heading toward Detroit. "Give it to me," Vance demanded, holding out his hand. "No," I said, clutching the drive to my chest. "This is the only thing keeping him alive." "Natalie, listen to me," Vance said, his voice grim. "Solano doesn't make trades. He ties loose ends. That drive contains the ledger of every bribe, every hit, every shipment for the last 10 years. If you hand that over, you are giving them permission to kill all of us. As long as you have it, you have leverage. And if I don't give it to them, they kill my dad right now. They're going to kill him anyway," Vance shouted, hitting the steering wheel. "He's a liability. The only way out of this is to use that drive to bring in the feds before we get to the bridge." "No police," Evan screamed from the back. "They're watching." Vance cursed and merged onto the exit for the bridge. The massive steel suspension cables loomed ahead, connecting Detroit to Windsor, spanning the dark, churning water of the Detroit River. My phone rang. The unknown number. "We're here," I said into the speaker, my voice trembling. "Riverside Park," the voice said. "Under the bridge. The blue shipping container by the water. You walk. Alone." "I want to see him first," I demanded. "Look to your left." I looked out the window. We were driving past the park entrance. Standing near the water's edge, illuminated by the headlights of 2 idling SUVs, was a figure. It was my father. He was on his knees. But as Vance slowed the car, the headlights swept over him and I screamed. He wasn't just kneeling. His chest was wrapped in something bulky and black, with wires trailing to a device in his hand. "He's not a hostage," Vance whispered, the color draining from his face. "He's the bomb." "He's rigged," Vance hissed, checking the chamber of a snub-nosed revolver he had pulled from under his seat. "The moment you hand that drive over, they detonate him to destroy the witness, and they shoot us to destroy the loose ends. You have a gun," Evan shrieked, pressing himself against the car door. "I'm a sociologist who studies organized crime, kid. I don't rely on tenure for protection," Vance muttered. He looked at me, his eyes hard behind his glasses. "Natalie, stay in the car. I'll try to flank them." "No," I said, opening the door. The river wind whipped my graduation gown around my legs, the cold biting through my thin dress. "He's my father. And they want me." "Natalie!" Mom screamed, reaching for me, but I was already out. I walked onto the gravel path. The only light came from the headlights of the cartel's SUVs and the distant amber glow of the Ambassador Bridge overhead. My father was 20 yards away, kneeling in the dirt. The vest strapped to his chest was a mess of duct tape and blinking red lights. He was sobbing, his face snot-slicked and terrified. A man in a dark trench coat leaned against the hood of the lead SUV. He held a phone to his ear, the same phone I was still connected to. "Hang up, Natalie," the man called out. His voice was the same one from the call. Artificial. "Let's talk face to face." I ended the call and dropped my phone into the pocket of my gown. I held the silver flash drive up in my right hand, making sure the headlights caught the glint of the metal. "I have it," I shouted, my voice cracking against the wind. "Let him go." My father looked up. His eyes were wide, rimmed with red. "Natalie," he choked out. "Give it to them. Please." They said if I get the drive I can input the code. I can take the vest off. "He's lying to you, Dad," I yelled, stepping closer. "There is no code. They're going to kill you the second they have this." "No, no, no," my father babbled, shaking his head. "Mr. Solano promised. I just need to balance the ledger. I just need to give back what I took." The man in the trench coat stepped forward. He smiled, and it was a cold, reptilian thing. "Your father has been very creative with our funds, Ms. Brooks. Borrowing from one account to pay for a son's luxury car, borrowing from another to pay for a country club membership. Yozas. The drive balances the debt. Let him walk to me," I commanded, moving to the edge of the riverbank. The dark water churned a few feet below a sheer drop. Let him walk to me, and I'll hand it to him. If anyone else moves, I drop this drive into the Detroit River. You'll never recover the data. The man stared at me. He looked at the drive, then at the water. He nodded once. Stand up, Robert, the man said. My father scrambled to his feet, the vest heavy on his chest. He stumbled toward me, his hands reaching out. Nat, please, he whimpered. Just give it to me. Can fix this. I can fix everything. He got within 5 feet. I could smell the sweat and fear on him. Dad, I whispered, tears blurring my vision. Why didn't you just ask me for help? Why did you try to erase me? He stopped. For a second, the fear in his eyes was replaced by that familiar look of resentment. Because you were never part of the plan, Natalie. You were always just in the way. He lunged for me. Dad, no. I stepped back, holding the drive out over the water. Get the drive, Robert, the cartel man shouted. Don't touch her. Vance's voice rang out from the darkness behind us. My father froze. He looked at me, then at the drive, then back at the cartel men. He realized in that second that he was dead either way. He looked at the vest. He looked at the trigger in his hand. I'm sorry, Natalie, he whispered. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, at the gray sedan where Evan and Mom were hiding. Dad, what are you doing? I screamed. He didn't hand me the trigger. He didn't ask for the drive. He turned around, facing the cartel SUVs, and started running toward them, screaming a guttural animal roar. The man in the trench coat didn't even flinch. He raised a pistol. Bang. My father dropped to his knees, a dark hole in his forehead. He fell forward into the dirt, his thumb slipping off the dead man's which he was holding. The blinking light on his vest turned solid red. Jump! Vance screamed. I didn't think. I threw myself backward, my body plummeting off the riverbank just as the world turned white. The shockwave hit me in midair, a sledgehammer of heat and force that slammed me into the freezing churning water of the Detroit River. The roar was deafening, muffled instantly by the rush of cold darkness. Debris rained down above me. Shattered glass, twisted metal, and chunks of earth, splashing violently into the current. I kicked upward, my lungs burning, clutching the flash drive so hard my knuckles popped. When I broke the surface, gasping for air, the scene on the bank was a nightmare of smoke and fire. The explosion had obliterated the front of the cartel's lead SUV, and left a crater where my father had stood. The remaining cartel members were scrambling, disoriented, but they weren't shooting at me. They were shooting at the swarm of federal vehicles screaming down the access road, sirens wailing. Natalie! Vance was sliding down the muddy bank, his tweed jacket ruined. He grabbed my wrist and hauled me out of the water, shivering and soaked. The drive, he panted, checking me for shrapnel. Do you still have it? I opened my hand. The silver stick was wet but intact. Good, Vance said, looking up as the FBI swarmed the surviving cartel members. Because Dr. Whitaker didn't just give you a fellowship, kid. He called the DOJ the second I hacked the server. The cavalry was already on the way. 3 months later. The fall semester at the University of Michigan was crisp and golden, the leaves turning the campus into a painting of fire and amber. I walked across the diagram, the crunch of leaves under my new boots the only sound. I wasn't wearing a borrowed gown anymore. I was wearing a blazer and carrying a briefcase. The scandal had dominated the news for weeks. The graduation day bombing, the cartel accountant, the student who fought back. My father's name was mud, his firm dissolved, his assets seized by the government. But we were alive. I met Evan at a coffee shop near State Street. He looked different, tired but real. He was working construction now, trying to pay for an apartment he shared with Mom in a modest complex in Ypsilanti. They had lost the mansion, the cars, the status. But for the first time when Evan looked at me, he didn't see a scapegoat. He saw his sister. Mom's doing okay, Evan said, stirring his black coffee. Therapy is helping. She asks about you. I'll visit, I said, and I meant it. Give it time. You filed the patent? He asked, pointing to my briefcase. Smiled. Yeah. The fellowship money is funding my research on corporate ethics and whistleblowing protocols. Dr. Whitaker appointed me as the student liaison for the new transparency board. You're famous, you know, Evan smirked, a shadow of his old self but softer. The girl who took down the Solano family with a flash drive and a sociology degree. I didn't want to be famous, I said, standing up. I just wanted to graduate. I left him there and walked toward the president's office. The heavy oak doors were open. Dr. Samuel Whitaker looked up from his desk, removing his glasses. Ms. Brooks, he said, standing up out of respect. Ready for your first day as a fellow? I looked around the room where decisions were made, the room where power lived. My father had tried to keep me out of rooms like this. He had tried to erase my name to protect his own lies. But he was gone, erased by his own choices. And I was still here. I'm ready, I said, stepping across the threshold. I didn't just belong at graduation. I belonged right here, rewriting the future.